Hey, welcome back to another PHP 2 class video. We're in milestone number 3 and at part 3, which is create a new person function for the administrator. In the last video we did the new form. In this video we're going to talk about the form handler and the database functions that are necessary behind it. So here's the code that we created in the last video, and this is what our form looked like. We have create a new user and click OK, but the form handler has not been created. So let's do that now. So you can see in the form action line that we have specified a specific handler. So process new user is the handler. And it looks like you have to put an L in handler. So let's take this name here, this process new user, and let's create a new file name with that. So let's go into the handlers folder and let's create a new PHP file. I'm going to paste in process new user and use PHP. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is include the header. So we're going to require it, I guess. Require once, and the header is 2 folders up and then PHP. So now we need to go and capture all of the input values from these field names. First name, last name, username, role, and password. So let's quickly create those. Okay, so now we're going to capture all of these. Wouldn't be a bad idea to first of all check to see if this actually exists. So if you use the isSet variable or the function, you can check to see if there's actually been anything passed into here. So if there is nothing from the get variable, you could just put a message out. So we can tell the user that nothing came from the form. So now I'm going to put in what my intentions are, and we're going to have to come back to this processor in just a minute. So I want to send a new user object to the business service and then eventually go to the database service. So let's save this and let's come back and see where our current process is. So if I go into the user business service, and I can see that I have functions that are for handling finding people, for deleting people, and updating, but it's strange, I forgot to put one in to create a new one. So we need to make a new function. So let's look at update 1 and kind of use that as a model. Okay, so I'm going to make a function that is titled make new. It will accept a person object that we're going to send it from our form, and then we're going to pass it on to the database service. However, when I get to the database service functions, you can see that there is not anything for making a new person. So we're going to have to pause here and go down one more layer and then come back. So let's go into the next layer down, which is user data service. And as we look through the functions that are in the list here, we once again see that there is nothing for creating a new user. Let's go look at the update function and see if we can use that as our starter code. So I'm going to copy everything inside of there and make a new function. So here's my new function. It's called make new, and I'm going to paste in the code from the update. So this is going to need a little bit of changing. Okay, so my notes here tell me what this function is supposed to do. It will accept a person object as a parameter, and then it will insert that record into a users table. So the SQL statement obviously needs to change. Instead of whatever's listed here, I'm going to delete everything. So we're going to be inserting into here and then all of the field names. Okay, and then after we specify the field names, we're going to tell it which values we're going to be using. And so since this is going to be a bunch of question marks, it's using the SQL prepared statements. And the customers table is not the name, it's called users. So I think I got it all right. The users table, let's double check everything here. So the users table has first name, last name, username, role, and password. Notice I left out ID because ID is a predefined field that will be automatically incremented. Now the next section down here is called bind parameters for markers. You can see that previously I was doing first and last name. So let's just extend that. Now you notice there's no type ahead here. I'm trying to see if this arrow will give me any type ahead. Eclipse is only looking in this one file to see if there's any object called person. So I'm temporarily going to put in a new person object here. And the only reason I do that is so that the type ahead will work better down here. So now when I put the arrow, I get all the functions here. So I want to get the username and go on with the rest of them. And it looks to me like I do not have get role. I'm looking for get role. So something is missing in my person object. Did I forget to put in a role? Let's go back and check it out. So let's go back to model here and check out person. And there is a role as an option here, but I don't have the getters and setters. So if you don't see it, it means you probably forgot to make it. So let's go and create some generate getters and setters. And sure enough, it's going to do that for us. So let's see. Let's put that at the end and click OK. So down here at the bottom, we have set role and get role. Looks good. So let's save it and back into our user data service. Now I'm going to try that again. So the arrow and try get, and there is role now. Good. And it appears that get password is no longer here or never was here, so let's go and fix that as well. As a matter of fact, in my person object, the password property doesn't even exist, so let's add that. And the constructor is going to need it. Okay, so I've added the property, it's the part of the constructor, and now let's do a generate the getters and setters. Okay, so we have get password and set password. Let's save it and go back once more to the database service and see if this will work now. So let's try get password. Okay, so we had to go back and fix up quite a bit of stuff in our object. Okay, so now we're ready to do some binding here. So we're going to take all of these variables like first name, last name, and let's add them in here. So put them in the correct order that we have in our SQL statement. So first name, last name, the next one is username, and then the next one here is role. So let's see, that's RO, and then we have password. Okay, so then we have to figure out what we need to assign these as, what data type. So S means string, I means integer, and D means a decimal value. So it looks to me like almost everything up here is a string except for the roles. So let's see. We're going to have 3 strings, an integer, and another string. Okay, then we have an execute, and if we get more than one row back, we get a true. Good, let's save it. Now let's go back to our business service. That's one level up here. And we were interrupted a while ago because we didn't have the right functions in our database service. So let's redo that arrow, and this time we should have make new, and the person object goes. Good. All right, so now our business service has the make new function. The user data service also has the make new function, and now we're ready to go back and do the process new users. Just a quick reminder of why all these layers are in here. So we've been through the presentation layer, which is our form. We've talked to our business service, which talks to our data access object, which then talks to the SQL statements on the database. And so there, we've just been through the whole layers. Okay, so now this should be simple. If we come back here, we can create a new object. I'm going to call it business service, or BS, equals a new, and let's say user business service. Also, we need to create a new user object, so that's going to be new user. Oh, actually it wasn't called user, it was person. So we have a person object, And you can see that all of the things in the constructor automatically fill in here. So let's check it out and see if we have what we need up here. So we have first name, last name, user role, and password. We just need to rename these so that they match. Now, when we create a new user, it will ignore the ID here. So let's just create that as a 0 for our ID number, and then we'll move on. Okay, so now the business service can act. So we can say business service, arrow, make new, and then the, let's see, it's accepting a variable called person, and I called it user. So those two variables have to match. So let's just rename this one as user. I could have renamed the other one, but we'll call it that. So now we need to check, did this actually work? So we can do an if statement. This function returns a true if the function actually was inserted. Okay, so I'm going to put in a echo message to say if something was successful, I'll say item inserted. Otherwise, I'll say nothing inserted. Then it would be a nice courtesy to return people with a link to the main page. For right now, I'll just send it back to the root of our application. Okay, so that seems to be like it's going to insert a new user. So let's come back here and let's refresh the page and let's retype in our stuff about John Smith. Alright, so I get an error. It says can't find this class, user business service. Why not? Let's go see why not. Let's go in the handler and let's go to the process new user. So I did not include my autoloader. That's why it doesn't know the classes. So let's go to require once and let's go to autoloader and see if that helps. Let's try again. So refresh and let's see. Now we got some other stuff here. Your undefined variable first name. So line 19 on process new user is down here. It says I don't know first name. It's an unknown variable. So you can see that these variables here are not matching those up on the top. So did I change those? I must have. So let's just rename them here. First name, and then this one is last name. Okay, I think those all match. Let's try refreshing it. Okay, now it says, we got another error. We got all kinds of errors. It says too few arguments going to function called person in the constructor. It is found in this file though, user data service on line 209. Exactly 6 are expected. So let's go look at what we did in user data service and figure out what the problem is. So user data service on line 209. Oh, I told you this was temporarily, didn't I not? And I had no arguments to the constructor. So let's just delete that. And it's saved now. And let's try again. Okay, it says it was inserted. Let's rebrowse here and check the very last item. Okay, item number 727 is John Smith. So let's come back and check our list of things that we're supposed to accomplish here. So the new form, a new handler, new DAO function, new business service function, new navbar menu. So I didn't get to the navbar menu, but I'm going to let you fix that up, and we'll probably not take the time right now.